You know, when you look up at the night sky, you see this silent witness hanging above our world. We think of it as just a rock, right? A light in the dark, maybe a destination for astronauts. But what if its real purpose is something much, much deeper? Something that's been hidden in sacred texts for thousands of years.
Exactly. Let's really dive into that. I want you to just forget astronomy for a second and think more like a programmer. What if the moon is actually the user interface for the operating system of reality itself? I mean, what if it's a way for us to see, to measure, and even to interact with a hidden flow of divine energy that's happening all around us all the time?
And this right here, this is our source code. It's a line from the Zohar, one of the foundational texts of Jewish mysticism. And look what it lists: gematria, calculating seasons, fixing the calendar. It talks about these not as some clever human inventions, but as fundamental tools. Tools designed to interact with a divine system. And the master key? The thing that unlocks all of them? Well, it's the moon.
Right, so to really get how the moon is used for all this sacred calculation, we have to completely redefine what the moon is in the first place. In this ancient system, it's not a passive object. It's an active cosmic function.
And that function, it has a name. It's called Malchut, which means kingdom. In Kabbalah, this is the final step in a long chain of divine energies. It's the precise point where the infinite, abstract spiritual world finally becomes concrete, physical, and something we can actually measure. You can think of it like the shoreline, where the endless ocean of the divine finally touches the sand of our physical world.
Okay, let's use a tech analogy here because it makes it so much clearer. Think about the higher spiritual realms, the worlds of pure concept, like Bina and Chokmah, as the unseen source code of a program, or maybe like an infinite cloud server. All the data, all the potential is there, but you can't see it or work with it directly. You need a user interface, right? You need something to render that data on your screen. In this cosmic system, that interface is Malchut.
And this is where it all clicks. If Malchut is the spiritual principle, the interface, then the physical moon we see in the sky is the hardware that runs it. And its cycle, the waxing and waning from a sliver to a full disk and back again, that's the screen display. It's a real-time, dynamic readout of these hidden cosmic processes. We're literally watching the heartbeat of creation made visible for us every single month. This incredible quote gets even more specific. So in this system, the sun represents a kind of raw, unfiltered, divine light, an energy of mercy. The moon is its sheath or its vessel. When the moon is full, it's perfectly reflecting that light, which means there's a flow of that merciful energy into our world. But when it wanes, when it goes dark, the flow changes. It becomes an energy of structure, of limits, of consequence, what the mystics call the fire of judgment. So the moon's phase isn't just pretty, it's a direct status update on the kind of divine energy we can access at any given time.
Okay, so if the moon is the interface and its phases are the display screen, how do we actually use it? How do we read the data and interact with the system? This brings us to the real engine room, the sacred mechanics of how this whole cosmic clock actually works.
And these are the three pillars from that Zohar quote we started with. Gematria, which finds these deep, hidden connections between concepts based on the numerical value of Hebrew letters. Tekufot, which maps the grand solar cycles of the seasons. And Iburin, the brilliant system of adding leap months to make sure the lunar and solar years stay synchronized. The key is, these aren't three separate sciences. They're all different applications within one unified system for interacting with reality. And the starting point for all of them is the moon.
Now here is a wild paradox, something that feels completely counterintuitive. You'd think the divine revelation would start from a place of maximum light, from a blinding flash, right? But it's the exact opposite. All sacred counting begins from the molad, the birth of the new moon, a moment of near total darkness, of concealment. It all starts from the lowest, most physical, most diminished point.
And this shows us that counting time, in this view, is not a passive act of observation. It's an active, creative, spiritual process. Take the counting of the Omar, for instance, between Passover and Shavuot. You start from that point of minimal light. And each day you count isn't just marking time, it's a conscious act. You are actively building a vessel, day by day, structuring and drawing down divine energy. When you finish the count, that completed structure you've built on Earth mirrors a perfect divine pattern, which allows a whole new level of revelation to come through.
This mystical quote right here reveals the hidden power of that initial darkness. The moon's concealment isn't a negative thing. It's called a whitening fire. Think of it like a dark screen on a computer. It's not empty, it's potential, It purifies, it erases the old data, creating the necessary void so that new light, new mercy can be written and structured upon it. The darkness is what makes the new light possible.
And Kabbalah actually uses colors to describe these two primary energies. White, or loven, represents the energy of chesed, of mercy. It's unbounded, infinite giving, pure light. Think of the full moon. And then there's red, odem. This represents gevura, or severity. It's the force of containment, of structure, of judgment. That's the new moon's hiddenness. The entire act of creation is understood as the infinite white light being poured into the structured red vessel, giving it form and definition.
And believe it or not, this interplay has a secret numerical code, the number 13. That represents the 13 attributes of mercy. It's the ultimate force that whitens the red of severity. It's the numerical signature of that boundless, formless white light.
And if 13 is mercy, then 5 is the code for structure. It represents gevura, containment, the vessel itself. It corresponds to the final letter He in the divine name, which is the letter associated with our lunar interface, Malchut. It's the power of that red energy, the container that gives form to all that infinite light.
All right, so we've been deep in the mechanics, the nitty-gritty of how this works. Now we can zoom out and see how this incredible engine actually drives the entire rhythm of sacred life. This isn't just theory, it's a living, breathing calendar that people have followed for thousands of years.
What's so amazing is that these core principles operate on every single scale, like a fractal. The daily cycle of sunrise and sunset mirrors that polarity of light and dark, of chesed and gevura. The weekly cycle builds to Shabbat, a return to the source. The monthly cycle, which kicks off with the new moon, Rosh Chodesh, is a chance to totally reset and plant a new spiritual seed. And of course, the yearly festivals are the grand appointments in this cosmic calendar.
And this is an absolute game changer in how you think about holidays. The festivals are called moedim. That word, moed, doesn't mean commemoration. It means an appointed time, a meeting. They are cosmic appointments, portals in time that are literally opened by the moon's precise positioning. This allows us to access a very specific quality of divine energy, like the energy of freedom that becomes available on Passover, or the energy of revelation on Shavuot.
And when you zoom out even further, the scale of this thing is just breathtaking. There's a 19-year metonic cycle, which is the genius that reconciles the moon and the sun and forms the basis of the Hebrew calendar. There's a 28-year cycle that marks the moment the sun returns to its exact position at the dawn of creation. And then there's the 49-year Jubilee cycle, which was designed for a total societal and spiritual reset. It's this incredible system of wheels within wheels, all designed for connection and renewal.
Okay, that was a lot of deep, mystical stuff. I get it. So the big question is, how does any of this ancient system actually apply to our lives today, right now? Well, to make it really click, let's try translating it into two modern languages, video games and engineering.
Yeah, for anyone who grew up with a controller in their hands, this one might feel instantly familiar. Just imagine for a minute that reality is an incredibly sophisticated, immersive video game designed for our spiritual development.
In this game, the moon is the master clock that controls everything. Shabbat is like a weekly server-wide event where everyone gets a spiritual power-up. The holidays are limited-time bonus levels, like you get to play the freedom level during Passover. And your good deeds, the mitzvot, that's how you gain XP and unlock spiritual achievements. You are the player, and this sacred calendar is your ultimate player's guide.
Or, if you have more of an analytical or technical mind, we can look at it a different way. Think of reality as a vast, interconnected cosmic engineering system, a piece of divine technology that's been designed with absolute, mind-boggling precision.
In this engineering model, the moon is the system's primary clock and scheduler, the pulse that synchronizes every single process. A festival is a pre-scheduled system state, a window where the firewall is temporarily lowered to allow for a high bandwidth data transmission, a massive influx of divine energy. And your soul? You're a node on this network, constantly receiving and uploading data, participating in the whole system.
So whether you connect more with the idea of a game to be played or a system to be engineered, the ultimate takeaway is exactly the same. This isn't presented as mythology or fairy tales. This ancient wisdom, all rooted in the cycles of the moon, is a functional blueprint, a living map of reality's operating system, and it was designed specifically for our spiritual growth and our connection to the divine.
So we started this whole journey by looking at just a sliver of light in the sky. And from there, we uncovered this incredible cosmic clock, an active interface to a divine operating system. We've seen how its cycles aren't just a way to passively measure time, but an active, living map for our spiritual lives.
This ancient wisdom doesn't just ask us to look up at the moon, it gives us a choice. So we'll leave you with this question. Now that you can see the clock, how will you choose to live in its time?
Thank you for joining us for this complete journey through the Pardes. We hope these ancient truths help you and your family improve your own dimensions this week.
If you enjoyed this full chapter deep dive, please like, subscribe, and share which part of the journey touched your soul in the comments. We'll see you in the next chapter.